Thanks for joining us today, everybody. I'm Kyle Ulrich, the president and CEO of FAI. And with me today, I've got Dave Newell, FAI's vice president of membership and industry relations, and Steve Weinstein, the CEO of Mangrove Property Insurance. So Steve and I have been friends for, over 15 years, almost the entirety of my career here at FAI. Many of you may recognize and know Steve from his time here in the property market in Florida. He actually joined us a couple years ago at convention and was a panelist with myself and a few others just talking about Florida's property market. He's been an insurance and reinsurance executive with extensive background in Florida insurance markets. Served for almost 2 decades as general counsel and executive vice president for Renaissance Re. And because of their involvement in Florida's markets, served on numerous boards with the Florida Chamber, Florida Insurance Council, Associated Industries of Florida, and the R Street Institute. And obviously comes with some pretty strong credentials, having an undergraduate degree from Columbia and his JD from Harvard. So, Steve, thanks for joining us today. The goal of this is to introduce you and introduce your new company, Mangrove, who got its certificate of authority January 15th, right?
Correct.
To our members, the independent agents here in Florida, and just kind of share some thoughts and insights that you have both about the market, historically, where we are today, and what Mangrove's plan is for, serving the needs of both policyholders here in Florida and independent agents. FAI has talked and written extensively about what tends to be a little bit of a volatile property market here in Florida. But we've felt pretty strongly about what the reforms in 2022 and 2023 would do and outcomes from that. And I'm proud to say that it appears as though many of those sort of prognostications about stabilization in the market and new entrants and attracting capital to Florida is coming to fruition. And so we're super excited to have you with us today to share your thoughts. So why don't we just get started and give you the opportunity to share sort of a 50,000-foot view of where we've been and where we are today and where we're going and how Mangrove kind of fits into all of that and the opportunities that exist.
Well, thanks so much for having me here today. And thanks so much for that kind introduction, those kind words. We have known each other more than a couple of years. And Florida is the most exciting and in some respects the most challenging market. And we've had some great successes over time, but also some extraordinary challenges. And there have been a few constants in the state across that period. And one is FIA and your extraordinary community of agents, and also you personally. So you've been a force for stability and for progress and for sanity. And it's always also been fun to work with you and the team. And I'm really thrilled to be here with you today.
Awesome. No, the feeling is mutual, Steve. I think, I've always found that the reinsurance market is one that for our members sort of, was never really paid that close attention to. I kind of made this joke a couple years ago when I was introducing, a 4-hour Law and Update class at convention. I asked the group, I said, how many of you all, so that's in mid-June, I asked the agents in the room, there's like 125 of them or something like that. Hey, how many of you all got communications from your carriers talking about getting their reinsurance placed on June 1? And, everybody raises their hand. And I said, okay, as a follow-up, 5 years ago, how many of you all got a communication from, your carrier partners talking about getting your reinsurance placed? And not a single person in the room raises their hand. And so, the world from which you come and operated in for a long time, has always been the underpinning of Florida's domestic property market, but largely unknown to many of our members. And so as we went through the turmoil that we've had, there's just been a focus and a spotlight on the reinsurance market. And I think that's a good thing. I think for agents, it's important for them to understand the interplay between, the retail setting that they provide or are part of with the policyholders kind of sitting between the retail primary insurer and the policyholder. But there's a reinsurance market that facilitates all of this. And so, your background there, I
Yeah.
think, lends itself, really well to, building a company here in Florida.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's a correct and, if I may, an astute assessment. And it was not always thus. This is the world that we've collectively built in the period after Andrew, an enormous paradigm shift in a very, very old industry. Insurance has a long history, and reinsurance is also nearly 1,000 years old, as far as we can tell. But the world before Andrew in Florida was very different. And we wrote homeowners, and we were babies back then. But homeowners was written in Florida by national and regional carriers. And of course, Andrew was a huge dislocation with a raft of bankruptcies, most importantly, a very significant loss of life, and a complete rethinking of how we understand and price hurricane risk. And when the dust cleared with a mix of design and trial by error, I think we've landed on the correct structure to support financially the world peak risk, which is Southeast Hurricane, Florida Hurricane, and its mangrove structure. But we learned a lot over the 3 decades. And there are things we've learned to do better, and there's things we'll continue to learn better. But we begin with the premise that this is the correct structure to provide financial security to Florida homeowners for the most significant peril in the world. And it's on a foundation of making the financing efficient by sharing it with a more diversified global portfolio. It's always been thus since the early 90s, but we tended not to talk about it until very recently. And I think we can do more. It's, reinsurance is a B2B business. And if they can, I'm saying that they now, as we've shifted our flag onto the other side of the ledger.
Right.
But to some degree, we can they want to have robust technical discussions with buyers of risks from Florida's domestic marketplace. It doesn't lend itself necessarily to consumer communications because the consumers are insurance companies. And that's, I think, been a mistake because we haven't collectively communicated the importance of reinsurance, which is how Floridians get paid after a storm. We've launched Mangrove in part with a very deliberate, explicit partnership ethos with what I think of as the real drivers of success. One is the agent community, of course, but the reinsurance community, which is the foundation of our capital base, has been in my mind since before the launch, across the launch, and every day going forward. We will underwrite backwards from a partnership with global reinsurers. We are building Mangrove for the long term to be a permanent franchise in the state of Florida. And we'll do that with reinsurance that's efficient, that's liquid, that pays us, and that leaves Mangrove in a great position to keep serving agents and policyholders after an event. And reinsurance is in our DNA. Not everyone that comes on board at Mangrove is going to get their associates in reinsurance degree. But I want all of us to think about our reinsurance partners as we invest in technology so that we can be transparent, so that we can be nimble, so that we have errors and we'll point those out quickly. Similarly, the agents are our core partnership. We'll have staff in-house at Mangrove to serve agents, but it's agents who know the markets, agents who know their customers, agents who've navigated all of these triumphs. We want to support that market, and we've been thinking very explicitly about how we can be a good partner to agents that can treat us like a partner from the beginnings of our development of Mangrove. And again, no organization is more important to that effort than FAIA, and we're thrilled to be in a dialogue with you and your members.
Well, thanks for that, Steve. I think that is a message that will be very reassuring to a lot of our members. That term partnership gets thrown around a lot, and sometimes it doesn't always feel that way. It can feel rather one-sided, and throughout all of our conversations, we've been talking about Mangrove and what you had in mind and sort of your ethos and plans for growth and the permanent franchise for, well over a year. I know this is not something that you just decided overnight that we're going to go build this thing. And in every conversation that you and I have had, it gave me great comfort knowing that when you got to the point to be able to launch in Florida, you would be a good partner to our members and to FAI, and we obviously appreciate that. Before we get into some of the questions that we have about the company and plans and so forth, can you just tell us a little bit about sort of your view of pre and post legislative reform and what the market sort of looks like? and why it does provide opportunities for folks like you to do exactly what you're describing.
Well, thank you. And I hope it's an opportunity, most importantly, for the market as a whole, for homeowners to begin having new choices with new capacity, for agents to have new choices. And Kyle, I think we are looking at, a tale of two markets. There's the portfolios that are still living to some degree with exposure to the world before the reforms, and the results that the data is telling us that we're seeing for portfolios and business that's subject to the world after the reforms. It's pretty stark. For business that is only exposed to the new reformer environment, we're seeing a normalization at long last of Florida loss activity. Claims are occurring, companies are paying claims, but it's in line with more historical norms for states with the weather that we've been experiencing and physical characteristics similar to Florida. It has never been this way. Florida has always been an outlier. We've been at this for 3 decades, and we can talk more about the challenges we've had with these 3 decades. But what we're seeing now is so stark from the entirety of the past, but in particularly this most recent, nearly decade-long crisis, allegedly linked to roofing and AOB, but really linked to the full culmination of a weaponization of abusive practices, which I think gave rise, just produced the crisis that required the complete reforms. At Mangrove, we're very grateful for everyone to participate in that process. The executive branch, legislatures, stakeholders like FAIA, we needed to restore balance to the market. It's given us the conviction to put our brands on the line, our capital on the market, and devote all our time to it. And without those reforms, I've always been fascinated by Florida and passionate about the market. We thought they were coming, and here they are. We've talked about the process as well. I had strong conviction that the reforms would be effective, but investors, reinsurers, other key stakeholders, after the depth of the crisis that they experienced, they need to see results. Part of what makes the timing for our launch propitious and possible now is we've had enough time to show actual results with actual losses when the winds have actually blown. It's actually lovely to see. CAT events prior to the reforms in Florida had a loss reporting tail that was unique in the country. But for the events of last quarter, we're seeing normalized claim reporting with actual losses, right? So a peak of reporting after the winds have actually blown and the waters have actually moved, trickling down normally in line with other loss events. So it has never been thus in Florida. We think it will be thus going forward. And it's why we can invest and march forward with confidence and believe we can achieve our vision of being a long-term player or permanent franchise in Florida.
Yeah, it's exciting to see because, this is not the first time I've said this. Probably many viewers of this interview will have heard me say this before. I wasn't sure that we would ever do away with the one-way attorney fee statute and, the basically full repeal of assignment of benefits. I just didn't know that day would ever come. I think it speaks to the depth of the crisis that we found ourselves in. But my fear at that moment was that, we had been working the legislature and regulators and the executive branch for years, telling them, if you would just do this, it would provide predictability and stability and put Florida more in line with other states, albeit not the same from a catastrophic risk standpoint, but from a claims handling standpoint, that there is predictability to that. I mean, I heard our former commissioner refer to it, many, many times, and I've heard you kind of talk about it the same way. Like, Hurricane Irma was as though the hurricane hit the state of Florida like 3 straight years with the losses, that occurred after the fact and litigation. And as you, I think, rightfully point out, the weaponization of the one-way attorney fee statute and the perverse incentive for people third parties to be involved in the claims process. And I was nervous that it may not materialize in the way that it has. So, obviously for many members of the legislature, regulators, executive branch, these reforms and new entrants in the market can't come soon enough. Obviously, they're hyper-focused on price. But we were as transparent as we possibly could be with those folks to say it's going to take time. As you point out, people need to see the data. There was a long period of time where reinsurers, primary insurers, capital markets looked at Florida and saw the data and said, that is just not a place that we feel really comfortable putting our money. And it takes time to be able to see that those trends really will turn into a sustainable trend. So it's exciting to see it.
We're so grateful at Mangrove that we can focus all of our energies forward. But I'll share just quickly a couple of pieces of data that inform the way that we've been thinking about the market, because it's also important to know how stakeholders, reinsurers, investors, and other third parties. You mentioned Irma. Irma, a pretty big event. It's one of the largest events in the historical record from an insured loss basis. Development on Irma is one of the largest events in the insurance record. And I think we can question the potential validity of claims on a property basis arising in the 33rd month after an event that had a pretty significant outflow of claims adjusting. In a 10-year period that ended in 2021, our market paid out $50 billion in homeowners claims. We know that 7 cents on the dollar got paid to policyholders. 73%, forgive me if that's plus or minus a bit, went out to other stakeholders. Some of that money found its way to legitimate purposes, but that's a very large percentage of a very large dollar figure. And across the same period, Florida has about 7% of the nation's housing stock, had about 8% of the nation's homeowners claims, but 75% of the nation's homeowners litigation. And I think those numbers helped key players in Florida understand how much of an outlier the state had become. And the request was not for was for harmonization, was for normalization, a rebalancing. And it is where we are. The world that we're in, we'll have losses, we'll have claims. The business of our business is to pay the claims. And Florida is a high-risk jurisdiction. We're peninsula jutting out at sea level into very hot waters. And we do need to be prepared and expect that we'll have losses. And what we want to have happen is that carriers are funded, backed by global risk transfer capital, to pay those losses quickly in partnership with agents, so that we put those dollars actually back into your home and ideally help you build back better. And that we see a significant diminishment in the amount of Florida stakeholder dollars that have been siphoned out of the system into other pockets. We're confident that will happen. It's the data that we've been seeing, but it is clear that some stakeholders outside of Florida are going to continue to need some more years, some more quarters of proof, because they've been burned so badly over the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. So those statistics that you shared on, number of claims and litigation, I feel like now looking back, hindsight's always 2020. At the time, it was data that we had never seen before. And it came from, a request of a House, I think Commerce Committee chair to the commissioner at the time. And when it was articulated that way, it seems so simple, but we'd never seen that. And for me now, looking back, that really, I think, was the turning point from sort of just the optics and the narrative that made it easy for policymakers who don't understand our industry to go, okay, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So what do we need to do? So with that, I think that's a great overview of sort of where we've been, where we're going, opportunities that exist. Inevitably, when new entrants come to the market, we, as the Independent Agents Association here in Florida, representing over 2,000 agencies, get a lot of calls from our members about who is this and what's their plan. So we've had the benefit of over time sort of coming up with the typically frequently asked questions that agents asked of us. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave at this point, and we'll continue to just have a dialogue and conversation. But let's get into some of the nuts and bolts about Mangrove, specifically your team plans and stuff like that. That way agents have some comfort and better understanding of who they're working with. So Dave, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. And congratulations, Steve, on Mangrove and getting your certificate of authority. It's a welcome entrance to the Florida property market. So we wish you very well. But one of the questions that we get, first of all, from our members, Steve, is number one, we said a little bit about you and your background, but who's the team? Because agents get concerned when there's a new entrance and they don't have anybody that experienced the Florida marketplace. You've certainly been in it, but what's the rest of the team, if you can share that with us, that you've kind of are building out?
Yeah, it's very important to me that we build a great team at Mangrove, small, nimble, dynamic, and experienced in the Florida marketplace. I have incredible admiration for the incumbent insurance companies that survived and weathered this crisis we've just been describing, while I watched carefully from the reinsurance community and from afar, looking to launch Mangrove when the timing is right. So my hats is off to that community. We are open for hiring, but we are going to build a team of people who are experienced in this market, experienced in Florida, experienced in homeowners, and have seen the cycle. We're building Mangrove for the long term. We're going to partner with agents right now when the market is the way that we know it is. And I don't believe the market will be like this forever. We want reinsurers to be with us now. It's still a hard market for reinsurance. Reinsurance is going to be expensive. I nonetheless will plan to invest very heavily in reinsurance. That market is cyclical as well. So we want people on all ends of our equation to understand that we are in a cyclical market to be permanent, to be a franchise, to be long-term. You want to manage partnerships with a view across the cycle. Florida is a very, very complicated environment. It's complicated meteorologically. It remains complicated despite these marvelous reforms from a claims, a legislative, a regulatory perspective. It's no place to wander around unchaperoned. So we have some great news coming with some terrific hires that we will share. But we have a team now we are averaging 25 years of experience in the Florida market across claims, operations, IT, and marketing. Some of our senior hires will announce shortly. We've announced our CFO hire. And we will have that team in some force at your event in June. And we'll look forward to showcasing our senior team with your members. But you don't have to wait to June to be in touch with us. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this in this conversation, Dave.
You know, the other part of the equation, Steve, is a financial rating. So what was that? Do you have one now, or are you going through that process?
We are done. So we were delighted to announce on Monday that we've been rated A exceptional by Demotech. And we're pleased and honored by that, and very, very happy to share that with you and your members.
You know, when you come out of the ground, Steve, you got to look at, where your sweet spot is. So what policy forms do you think you all will come out of the ground with from the homeowner side? HO3, a DP product, or are you coming out with a condo product? What do you think about those?
Yeah, we are, exactly. So we are authorized and licensed, and we're rated, and our forms are approved. HO3, HO6, DP3. I think this is look, we're all aware of the scale of the opportunity on this call. We want to focus like a laser on providing the most value to policyholders and agents where there's the most current need, and it's in those lines of business. Over time, we will see, but for now, we want to focus on execution, on keeping our promises, on being a smooth and good partner to agents. There's so much for us to do in that space. It'll be more than enough, and we are focused like a laser on being a solution and a permanent solution in those lines.
Well, that's good news. And come with that, Steve, as this marketplace continues to evolve, with new entrants and certainly takeouts, and we'll get to that in a minute. But there seems to be an awful lot of emphasis from our members about coverage comparisons, about having to make sure when they look at a new entrance, they understand what coverages are available. Are you guys going to have kind of a checklist or some things that agents could be to review to make sure they're looking at Mangrove in a way to help their clients?
Absolutely. I think that's wise for agents to understand. Our coverage will be competitive. We intend it to be superior to Citizens, and it will be risk rated, actuarially based, and competitive. So we'll share some schematics of that. And importantly, we're happy to talk agents through what our products are. The assumption process is what it is. And as we move into the voluntary channel, we also want to work with agents so that we provide flexibility and solutions in a nimble way. We've invested very heavily on the front end on systemware and technology with an intention on giving agents online tools, an online portal that we think will be extremely competitive, but it's geared from an agent perspective. We want it to be fast. We want it to have it support pre-fill, and we want it to be accurate. So I think it's pretty nifty. It'll improve over time with agent input. And we're really keen to start showcasing the power of what we've built, in that it's oriented towards you. We have capabilities that matter a lot to us: data, analytics, transparency with reinsurers. But I care a lot about functionality for agents. And what we've built, I think it's pretty good. It'll get better when we start interacting with agents. Bring your feedback on board and continue to invest.
Well, one of the pieces of feedback, Steve, that you're going to get with that new system is the ability to download. So
Yes.
I don't know if that's on your radar, but that is certainly something. Okay. So agents, be aware, Steve gave the thumbs up on that, because that is certainly an area that we get a lot of questions around, especially for new entrants.
And we will also do our best to do business with agents in the way that they can do business with us. If at the end of the day you need to print out a PDF and scan it, we'll work with that. But there's so much efficiency and speed and agility for your customers, our mutual customer, the policyholder, that we do want to support you with an electronic platform as the agents are able and willing. And I think they will be enthusiastic to adopt it.
I'll just jump in real quick here, Dave. I just want to point out, that word of efficiency is one that is really important, because we've had so many conversations with our members over the last couple of years where there has been a hyper focus on compensation and commission rates and all of that sort of stuff as carriers are battling profitability. But we've always been very quick to point out that that is a very important component, but it is only one component. The efficiency in which you are able to interact and write business with a carrier matters, and it matters in a big way. And so I know it's great to hear you say that, because it is a balance of compensation and efficiency and the way that an agent does business with you. So,
I hope as well too the likelihood the carrier will pay claims. We're embracing a claims paying culture. We look forward to paying valid claims. And we will ensure that we have an unprecedented balance sheet to withstand the unique challenges of Florida. And you're right. For time is money and time is opportunity, and we'll have to keep abreast of things. We're also aware we have the opportunity now, because technology is advanced, that we can start with systemware that reflects a current tech and a cloud-based environment. And I think we're pretty state of the art for 2025. Are we state of the art for 2035? Not today, but we'll keep our eyes on how things evolve and try to always keep agency efficiency at the forefront of what we want to deliver to the market.
Yeah, Steve, one of the other things that comes up in these conversations with members on new entrants is your appetite and your territories. Are you going to be open statewide, or are there certain territories that you feel more comfortable or less comfortable in? Tell us a little bit about that.
That's a great question, and we will operate statewide, and I'm happy to share some of my thinking around that. We want to diversify our book from an exposure management process across the entire state. Again, we plan to survive every event, and we will structure a portfolio that ensures that what's exposed to the track of any one storm is entirely tolerable for Mangrove. And that requires us to build an agency network across the state. So I sometimes speak, we want to be open for business in all 67 counties. And we want to build that roster out over time so that we will work with agents that understand our approach and reach out to us as well. But our strong goal, and it's linked to our reinsurance buying strategy as well, is to operate statewide.
In that same line, Steve, have you looked at your agency plan? Have you looked at a number of agencies that you would like to see statewide in this program?
We have. We plan to be a big player. So we're also a startup. So when we look back in 3 years, we'll have a broad network. But we also want to be a meaningful partner with the people that we partner with. There are different ways to have a relationship.
Right.
And we'll embrace as a partner people that want to deal with us as partners. It's possible we'll have other relationships predicated on different structures and different terms as well. And that will build out over time. Right now, we also want to be a good partner to citizens in the state and participate in helping to de-risk and depopulate citizens a bit. As I kind of look at our calendar, we are approved for an assumption in April. Kyle, you and I have observed over time, this calendar has stretched out a bit. We're very focused on participating in that process in a way that is smooth, so that agents and policyholders have a smooth and seamless process, that there's continuity. And we're investing a lot of our operational calories in that right now. There's a date on the calendar that matters to us, which is Feb 25, to make sure we have the appointments and the process in place. It seems odd to be working in January and February for something that will occur out in April, but that's the roadmap that we have right now. We will begin our voluntary program shortly. We'll be sharing information about that. We'll look to share it through FAIA. Please visit our website as well, Mangrove-Florida, mangrove-fl.com. And we'll begin sharing information about that process and our appetite. But you don't have to wait to reach out to us. We'll do our best to get back to you and share with you our priorities, where this week's calories are going, and what we think our calendar looks like.
Well,
So sorry, Dave.
No, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that we highlight something and make sure that everybody understands the date. So when you say February 25th is, a point on that timeline that requires you all to notify agents of policies that have been tagged. Am I understanding that right?
We are going to notify you in kind of contemporaneously with the airing of this broadcast. Feb 25 is when to be a solution for you to provide better coverage, a different commission structure, significantly less assessment risk. We have to have a limited appointment in place.
Okay.
So I think that's a superior solution. We've been really thrilled and delighted with the support from the Citizens team. And again, we're very, very focused on that process going smooth. So let me stress a couple of things, though, about our assumption appetite. We are tagging policies we'd like to have. We've been underwriting this book very carefully. If we tag a policy, we think it's a risk we want to renew and work with the incumbent agent to be a stable source of capacity for that. We're only going to tag policies within Citizens' 20% band. I don't believe in theatrical gestures at Mangrove. We're going to try to get it. We're going to try to support it. We're going to work with you, the agent, for a great outcome. You can help us with that by signing up on a limited appointment structure so that we can be a better solution, reduce assessment risk, provide more expansive coverage. And it's also a way for us to get to know each other. This process will not go perfectly. I'm not here to tell you I'm guaranteeing 1,000% execution on a 2-week process, but I can assure you that we will do everything we can to make it go smoothly. And I want to hear about things that we can do better as we're going through it. And that's something I hope will differentiate Mangrove. I don't want to be eyes blind to balls that we've dropped. I want to hear from things that we can do better. And I think that's part of being in a good partnership. And I know FAI members are not shrinking violets, and we'll hear from you about how we can improve the product and the process.
Well, you mentioned it, Steve. None of our members are bashful. So we will certainly hear how the process goes and how they think they can improve it. So we'll certainly share those comments with you. Turning to, you mentioned still building out the team and certainly the IT aspect. But one of the things that comes up in these conversations is administration, claim handling, policy issuance. Is that something you guys have built in-house, or are you going to outsource that?
I want to be good at a couple things. I want to be a great partner to agents. I want to be a great underwriter in the Florida homeowners context. I want to be a great partner to reinsurers and on structuring efficient reinsurance protections for Florida and ensuring that it's liquid and when appropriate collecting on it. And I want to be a great partner to technology vendors. I'm very, very excited about the system that we've been building on the front end in partnership with people who are great at that. And I think agents will be really happy with what we bring to market.
Okay.
What I know about programmers is I want to buy you coffee.
You mentioned the limited services agreement, but you also mentioned direct appointments that you're going to be open for business, for voluntary business soon. Tell us a little bit about that process, Steve, because agents, of course, that have gone through a takeout don't normally get offered or the opportunity to get a direct appointment. So how do you envision that going?
Sequentially, and we've lived a year in the last 2 weeks since our COA. And we'll live another year in the next 2 weeks as we keep accelerating into our launch. So we welcome your support and your partnership for this smooth process in April by helping us meet this Feb 25 deadline.
Okay.
We're not going to waste anyone's time. Again, we're not going to ask you to send communications to your policyholders that don't relate to policies that we hope to have and hope to renew and believe we'll exit Citizens because we'll stay within the 20% band. We also want to be efficient with your time when we begin the appointment process. We are securing our reinsurance. We are in great shape, but we will put our first placement into market, and in conjunction with that, accelerate our appointment process. And again, stay tuned, but there's
Okay.
no need to do nothing. You can register on our site your interest. People have been emailing us, which is terrific. info@mangrove-fl.com. But also as well through our limited appointment communications, we are receiving and soliciting interest in full appointments. We are looking forward to having that dialogue with you.
You mentioned earlier about being an alternative for the takeouts and offering better coverage and certainly a better commission schedule. Can you share with us a little bit about what that commission schedule may look like?
For a broadcast, and without checking my compliance regs, let me leave that to the written communications we'll send across.
Okay.
But it's superior to Citizens, of course.
Okay. You can imagine that's on agents' minds, but we'll wait for the offering. And again, I think this may come, this next question. Agents that certainly get direct appointments have requirements that are from the carrier from a production standpoint. Steve, have you all looked at that and certainly kind of dealt with that and how you're going to put limitations on agents going forward?
Let me address that two ways. We have, and again, we're going to operate statewide and manage our aggregates and manage our relationships. So I'm not going to express a single rule because we'll be a solution in the Southeast, we'll be a solution in the central part of the state, will be a solution in the Panhandle. So again, stay tuned. And every agency is different. We want to work with quality agents, and what makes sense for you, your footprint, your organization may not translate into a one-size-fits-all rule that makes sense for every great organization we want to partner with. But I also want to say too, we could be bigger. I'm entirely comfortable with the capital that we've raised, and I have a strong conviction in our ability to place, secure, and when necessary, collect on the reinsurance I plan to get. But with more capital, we can be a bigger solution. The market need is bigger than our current plan, and with additional capital support, we are open for being bigger. So that's another dialogue I'm certainly willing to have. But what's very, very important to me as I think about capital is we will be a long-term player. We have not launched with capital support that requires an exit, and we have not launched with any capital that would limit my strong conviction, I can't repeat this too often, to buy reinsurance to levels that we have not seen in Florida. Reinsurance is expensive. We will be buying protection from events I sure hope don't happen. In our vernacular, out there in the tail, well past the requirements of the OIR and Demotech. And I don't regret that my life insurance didn't pay out last year. I'm going to really enjoy paying for that reinsurance, and I'm going to celebrate when it doesn't collect, and we'll go on to the next cycle as a great partner for reinsurers and grow in the state on the basis of an efficient reinsurance structure that will support our growth. And again, we can be a bigger solution sooner, and it's a dialogue we're quite happy to have.
Yeah, to kind of put a bow on that, Steve, what is the CAT strategy? We talked about the reinsurance. You talk about making sure there's money there to pay claims for the policyholder. What is Mangrove's catastrophe strategy going forward?
Well, let's break that into two. Financially, we're going to be prepared to withstand multiple events of a scale that we've never seen in Florida occurring with some compression in the state in a single year. And that's expensive. I hope it will be more efficient over time, but it's an investment worth making to build the permanent franchise that I want Mangrove to be. We are also building out a roster of top-end relationships with the right resourcing to deliver, importantly, claims adjusting, but importantly as well, restoration work. We hope that we can partner with agents and policyholders that when you have real losses, not imaginary losses, actual losses, that we work with you to repair it so that you're in a more resilient structure than the one that experienced the loss. So a roster of adjusters, but also an important network of restoration. So if we have to help you rebuild, we help you rebuild back better. It's also part of our philosophy of renewing with you. Our goal is to help you put you back in your home, a home that's more resilient at a rate that reflects the risk that we've just learned about, but seek a renewal if all the circumstances warrant. And to me, all those criteria and preparation and execution plans come together.
As we wind down our time with Steve, and we really appreciate this, Steve. This is a great opportunity to showcase Mangrove with our members. But where are you guys going to be headquartered in Florida?
We have an official address in St. Petersburg, but
Okay.
as I mentioned, it matters a lot to me that we have the best possible team, and I'd rather have great people than have them at any particular point in time. I will wait for the star talent from as the clouds part and that comes on, and likewise, I care. The most important source of capital is human capital, and we are not necessarily requiring people to move. We'll accommodate you with technology and systems, and we will be based across the state. I personally want to spend my time across the state, meeting agents, dialoguing with other key stakeholders. I don't have a mental model of going to the same office in the same location every day. It won't surprise me if we end up with a cluster of talent in the Tampa-St. Pete area, but we're open for business. We want to talk with and see agents all across the state. We're open for talent from across the state, and we will make this work. So I sometimes say no headquarters. We have an official address, but it's part of our plan of being a solution in every county of Florida to the extent that we can.
Okay. Last thing, Steve, do you envision a managed repair program for Mangrove?
Managed repair, we use phrases differently. We are not a managed repair shop, but I think we've all seen the benefits of the option to repair product and choice for consumers. And we want to work with our team, the partners that we're deploying, to educate policyholders that when the losses warrant, using a prearranged, vetted selection of restoration experts to put you back in a better position is very valuable to you. This technology really proved its worth during the extended fraud crisis. It's valuable for carriers going forward. But at the end of the day, our product is to pay real losses and put you back in your home in partnership with agents, and the option to repair technology, but importantly, the network of restoration vendors that we'll have on the table help us deliver what we're really trying to do, which is your family back in your house, a house that's more resilient.
Well, thanks again, Steve. I know Kyle's going to close, but I really appreciate your candor on these questions. They're certainly helpful to the members that are going to be viewing this in the next day or two. So we really, really appreciate your time, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, this has been, I think, a fantastic conversation, both talking about where the state has been, the opportunities that exist, and obviously a lot of detail about Mangrove, what you're building, what you spent a lot of time thinking about and building. Obviously, very important to us. The constant reminder that you stated on this call over and over and over again about partnership with independent agents and with FAI. Congratulations, Steve, on having this come to fruition. Thank you. There is, as you pointed out, lots of opportunity in Florida. There's plenty of business to go around, and new entrants into the marketplace is what's most important for the long-term health of this market. Having choice. You mentioned it. For agents to have choice. Not every company is going to be super competitive in every single market. Certain companies may not be good fit for certain agencies. That's the way the world, but that's what an independent agent is you get to choose who you want to do business with. And it's the value proposition that the carrier brings to the agency and vice versa that makes the world go round, and frankly, makes for a better policyholder experience, in my opinion. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being candid about your vision and what you're planning on building. I think we covered a lot of ground, but anything that you'd like to share in closing with our members?
I want to thank you again, Kyle, and again, all of the agents and FIA who have helped keep this market going and sustainable across an extraordinarily challenging period. I think together we can do great things going forward. And I'd like to close as well. Let's also partner on mitigation and resiliency. And the best way that we can ultimately control the cost of insurance is by reducing the cost of the hazard. And that's with retrofits and smart building and ensuring that Florida's infrastructure is resilient for the inevitable next storms. And then most importantly, that people's life safety is enhanced. But let's focus like a laser on execution and learn from you. We welcome your input, and we were really glad to be able to be with you today.
Thanks, Steve. And I'm glad you mentioned that last little bit about resiliency, because I know that that's a passion of yours that you spend a lot of time thinking about, talking about. And I know it'll be a cornerstone of your strategy and business philosophy and so forth. And it's meaningful, both from the standpoint of cost, but then, most importantly, life safety. So thank you for mentioning that at the end. We look forward to working with you. Like I said, it's exciting. As I said from the very beginning, we've known each other for a very long time, and really excited about the solutions that you and your team are going to bring to our members here in Florida. So with that, we'll wrap it up and say thank you once again and congratulations, Steve.
Thank you so much.